Let's see. I gotta get my video back up. There we go. Thank you for your patience. As you guys know, from time to time, just making sure my mic's not muted. From time to time, when I do topics for the live show every Saturday, it shakes up things in me that I have to look at in a deeper way, or what we sometimes call pus pockets of kind of inner work that I need to do. And this topic on who is the real narcissist in the house brought some things up for me to look. So that's why I'm running a little behind. So thank you so much for your patience, and I'll check the chat in a moment to make sure that you guys can hear me, see me, everything's coming through okay. I was laughing because I think the last time that I was this late to a live show, I was wearing this jacket. So maybe it's something with this jacket I gotta look at. But anyway, just teasing. But a couple announcements before I get into our topic today. Just a reminder, I'm on a summer schedule because Adam and I enjoy camping and taking advantage of the outdoors here in the beautiful state of Colorado during the summer, which also gives you guys some Saturdays off too to go out and do other things. I appreciate your loyalty of being here on Saturdays with me and how much that means to me. But we'll have some breaks in the Saturday live show over the summer. So a reminder, I will not be live next Saturday, which I believe is June 14th. So a happy early Father's Day to all the dads out there. And then I will be back the following Saturday, which I believe is the 21st. So you can check out on the channel under posts. I have a summer schedule. So if you're someone that likes to be here every Saturday and be here for the live show, you might go check that out so that you can mark that in your calendars and know when I will be here and won't be here. And then also, always like to remind you guys that you can find the Happy Wife School show on Spotify or podcast. Some prefer to listen to this in podcast format. So that's where you can find me on Spotify and Apple. And then also a reminder to go check out my colleague Josie's YouTube channel. She's the autoimmune expert, and she helps people to permanently heal autoimmune disorders like fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's, rheumatoid arthritis, Lyme disease, things of that nature, and also chronic illnesses like depression or anxiety, ADHD, chronic pain. She helps people to permanently heal from conditions like those by working on the emotional state. So you definitely want to go check out her message. She has a very unique and cutting edge perspective on healing and our human capacity to self-heal from autoimmune and chronic illness. So you can find the link to her channel in the description below. So please go check out Josie, the autoimmune expert. And with that being said, I'm going to check the chat real quick, take a breath, and we're going to hop into who is the real narcissist in the house. And that's what we're talking about today. So excited to get into the topic loud and clear. Thank you so much, Phil. Always repeating that so that I see it when I pull up the chat, and already lots going on there in the chat. So good to see Salty Combat Diver and Luke in the house. I think I saw Tia's name earlier. As always, a real big thank you. And Mauricio, just so many familiar names. You guys are awesome to be here every Saturday. And as always, a big thank you to Phil and Steve for moderating and holding the chat down. You guys rock. And people say the kindest things about what a great job you do here in the chat on Saturdays. I saw a funny question: is the happy wife happy right now? And the answer is yes. That's the cool thing about being happy, is that happiness is really a deep contentment in oneself, a self-acceptance of one's life and of who one is, which develops into a healthy relationship with ourselves and feeling good about who we are. So it's fascinating and counterintuitive that how we feel good about ourselves is our willingness to look at our flaws, look at our shortcomings, and embrace them as a way to grow and learn in life and to uncover the best parts of us. And that creates a good sense of self and feeling good about who we are. And I never would have believed that. So even though I had a challenging morning, I can confidently tell you, yeah, the happy wife is happy. So good to be here. And let's get into the topic. Who is the real narcissist in the house? So where I want to start, as always, just a reminder that this channel is for marriages with typical, everyday, common issues behind closed doors. I teach that as women, we all have these behaviors that I talk about on a spectrum, and that these behaviors really come out and negatively impact and are destructive in a marriage with a good man. So my message is meant for that framework. Women married to good men married to women. Doesn't mean good men don't make mistakes or have challenges and problems, but they are generally your steady eddies. Good men are predictable. They're hardworking. They are geared towards taking responsibility, and they, more than anything, want their wives to be happy and bend over backward trying to do the things to make her happy, yet nothing makes us happy because as women we're unhappy in ourselves. So that's who my message is for. It is not for extreme dysfunctional relationships or physically abusive relationships. And if that is you, please know my message is not supportive in that framework. And that's important to know right off the bat. So getting into the topic, I want to first start out by defining what I mean by a narcissist. Okay, and we're going to define what a narcissist is, or a narcissistic relationship is. It is a one-way relationship where an individual has an excessive preoccupation with their self and their own needs at the expense of another. A narcissist is a one-way relationship where an individual has an excessive preoccupation with their self and their own needs at the expense of another. So as I talk about this today, I am not talking about a mental health diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. What we want to understand is that everyday narcissism in our humankind and society and culture, everyday narcissism goes undetected because it is so common and so pervasive in our daily lives. A diagnosis is an extreme form of narcissism. A diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder is an extreme form of narcissism. But narcissism, again, is a common human experience that goes undetected. And the reason that it goes undetected is because of projection and a lack of self-awareness. I relate this very much to what I talk about in being a victim. So those of you who have been watching a while know I like to talk about camp victim versus camp take responsibility. And being a victim is placing the blame of our experience onto another as a way to protect ourselves, to not have to look at our own part and role, our own choices and decisions that are creating our life and our life circumstances. And victim is often referred to as an abnormal human behavior, but it is actually common and pervasive in our human experience. And it's so pervasive that it goes undetected. And often because in victim, we can't see it in ourselves. There's a total lack of self-awareness and we think it's others. And narcissism is very similar to that. So we're looking at this as a normative human behavior that's pervasive in our human experience because we project onto others as a defense mechanism to not have to see it in ourselves, it creates a lack of self-awareness. And so we see others as being narcissistic or narcissists and are unable to see those behaviors in ourselves. So that's really important to set the stage in what I'm going to be talking about today. And the reason that I want to talk about who is the real narcissist in the house is because this is a very common issue that good men deal with and face in their marriage and relationships with women, is being accused and painted as a narcissist. So I want to look at why that happens, how to know your wife is a narcissist, which is really another word for what I talk about in Woman Ways, where the foundation of narcissism comes from, why your wife thinks you're a narcissist, and then getting into, do you have a narcissistic wife? 10 ways to know for sure. And for the women listening, this is a red pill moment to see the truth of your own behaviors and your nature, not to make yourself bad and wrong or be scared of the term narcissist or narcissistic behaviors, so that you can develop self-awareness and see these behaviors in yourself and give yourself the opportunity to change in profound ways that will have an incredible impact on your marriage. And this is also for good men who have been accused of being a narcissist in their marriage and have lost sight of who they are as good men and are caught in the gaslighting and manipulation of your wife accusing you of being a narcissist, so that you can see see the truth, get out of the crazy making, and be able to navigate from reality. So the first place that I want to go after defining what a narcissist is I want men to know how to know that you are not a narcissist. So the first place we're going are 3 ways good men can know if your wife is accusing you of being a narcissist. 3 ways to know that you are not. The first is that when you go to work, you're out in public, you're interacting with your colleagues or employees, if you own a business, how you interact with your friends or strangers out in public. In other words, any other place than your marriage, then you can see how you interact with people being caring and caring about others, being collaborative, caring about how others feel and considering their feelings, wanting to do a good job in all that you do, appreciating others and their contribution to the whole. In other words, you get along with basically just about anyone. That if that's you, outside your marriage and out in the public, whether that be at work or with your friends or, like I said, strangers or other people you know outside your marriage, and you can get along with just about anybody, and you see how you interact out in the world, that's one way to know you are not a narcissist, as your wife is accusing you that you are. The second way a good man can know he is not a narcissist is you don't see your wife as a narcissist. You're unable to see and spot these behaviors that I talk about on the channel. You can't see the emasculation or the gaslighting or the manipulation, which is part of why you're here and you're getting your own red pill to wake up and see the truth of what's really happening in the marriage and getting out of the brainwashing that you are the problem and the sole problem in the relationship. That in that, good men are totally blinded because they don't have the inner workings that we have as a woman and our manipulations and emasculation and gaslighting and how we show up in a relationship with a good man. So you can't see it because good men are not wired that way. Good men are even-keeled, good-natured, predictable, measurable, stable, emotionally regulated. They're problem solvers, and that's the inner working of a good man. So that's why a good man can't see what's happening in his marriage and how his wife is manipulating him into being the problem, and a good man buys into that. So as a good man, if you can't see it in your wife, and you've needed this channel or other context to wake up and see the reality in your marriage, or you still make excuses for your wife's behaviors, and you look at her past and her upbringing and the things that have happened to her in her life and believe that's the cause of why she is the way that she is, and give her those excuses and enable her in that, in the way that you love and adore your wife, that's another way that you can know you're not a narcissist. The third way a good man can know that he's not what his wife is telling him and being a narcissist is that you've actually gone to see a therapist or a psychologist to go through tests to identify and see if you're a narcissist. I can't tell you the men who have reached out to me who are in this situation and circumstance where their wife has accused them of being a narcissist, buy into that story and what they're being told and go explore it and try to figure it out. Am I a narcissist? I don't know. I didn't think I was. And then they will actually go to a therapist or actually go to a psychologist and go through testing to find out. True narcissists. And in that extreme form are not willing. They are not willing. They're unwilling to even entertain the idea that they might be a narcissist. So if you're a good man and you've bought into the story and you're trying to figure it out, and how am I a narcissist, and trying to work on yourself, I don't want to be a narcissist, you can know you're not. Because if you were, you wouldn't do that. So those are 3 ways. So just getting into this right from the get-go before I get into our craziness and complications as women and our narcissism. It's important for a good man listening and for the women listening who think your husband is a narcissist to know this is how you know you're not. So again, number 1, you get along with others outside of your marriage and are very easy to get along with, care about others, have concern about their feelings, want to do a good job, want to be collaborative and work with others. That's one way. Again, number 2, that you love your wife and you can't see her narcissistic ways. And number 3, that if your wife has accused you of being a narcissist, you've actually looked into it and tried to figure out if you are. So those are 3 ways, if you're a good man, to know that you're not, if your wife is accusing you of that. And that, again, it's just important to establish right out of the gate, so that you can start to break through that gaslighting and brainwashing of what's happened. So here's why your wife is a narcissist. And a narcissist or narcissism or narcissistic behaviors are another term for what I talk about in woman ways. And then on a spectrum, as women in our woman ways and in a relationship with a good man, we all have narcissistic behaviors. So the reason that you can know we are is that the foundation of narcissism, again, when we look at the definition, I'm going to have to keep that handy. When we look at the definition, a one-way relationship where an individual has an excessive preoccupation with their self and their own needs at the expense of another, the foundation of that is our selfishness. So recently, I think a few weeks ago, I did a video on our selfishness as women. And our selfishness is really the foundation of our narcissism because, again, as women, we are pain avoiders. We're terrified to let anyone into our hearts and be loved or cared for or love and care for another because in being pain avoiders, we have created a collection of hurt and heartbreak within us, and we are terrified to feel it and let it go and move on and love in life as if we've never been hurt before or never loved before. So selfishness is a protective mechanism that prevents feelings of hurt or heartbreak or really feeling anything because we are so terrified as women of being hurt and feeling the pain of that emotional hurt and feeling the pain of heartbreak. And so in our selfishness, we create a universe of one, which is really the definition of narcissism. It is a total self-absorption with ourselves, a excessive self-centeredness, an inability to consider our husband's needs and what's going on for them outside of our own. So we can know as women that our narcissistic patterns come from our wiring as women to be selfish. And selfishness and narcissism are really synonyms. And why your wife is a narcissist in that, and why she accuses you of being a narcissist, is a total projection of our own internal world and living in that universe of one. And when she accuses you of being a narcissist and is so emotionally charged by what she sees in you, I like a phrase that ties in well with projection. That's the opposite of a good man's experience. He doesn't have it, so he can't see it, which is why he needs to be red-pilled. But the phrase I like that is closely correlated with projection is, if you spot it, you got it. So in your wife's wrath and emotional upset, accusing you of being a narcissist, she sees what she sees in you because that's her own internal world and her wiring as a woman. And I speak from experience, why I started this video. Like, I've looked at this and had to work on this in myself over the years. And this brought up a deeper level of having to see this in myself and how I've shown up in relationships and in my marriage, and seeing that about myself so I can continue to grow and evolve into the best version of myself as a woman and a wife. And for the women listening, that's how you want to take this as well. That if you get so upset and are so sure your husband is a narcissist and all the things you see in him, that he's being a narcissist, that's a projection of your own relationship with yourself and how you are showing up in the marriage. And that's where that phrase, if you spot it, you got it. And you can know, again, in that emotional charge around what you see in your husband is a reflection of you and the behaviors you have in your own narcissism and narcissistic tendencies. And again, that's a common everyday human experience that we have to be willing to see so that we can work through it and change. It's just our humanness and our womanness. So why we think our husbands are a narcissist, and for the good men listening, why your wife thinks you are a narcissist, is, again, she projects onto you. And what happens to good men who are vulnerable and susceptible to their wives' woman ways and her accusations is that a woman will poke, or your wife will poke and prod you to elicit narcissistic behaviors so that she can identify you as a narcissist. See, look what he did. Look how aggressive he just got in that, or look how controlling he is. Or he's only consumed with himself. He doesn't consider me at all. As in our woman ways and our narcissism, again, we poke and provoke you and prod you to elicit narcissistic behaviors so we don't have to look at ourselves. And we can point the finger out and say, see? And what happens for a good man in that situation is he believes and buys into his wife's gaslighting of him that he's a narcissist. which is why good men will end up going to, in most cases, a therapist or a psychologist, trying to get testing done to figure it out, because their wives are so convincing. And then they see themselves again, they're poked and prodded and provoked to elicit those behaviors. And then a good man saying, well, I did do that. That is me. She must be right. Maybe I am. That's how crafty and tricky this is. But she does that to not have to look at herself and continue to create the story and create the reality we feel inside of ourselves. So we don't have to look at ourselves. It's how we create our victim story. And that's the purpose of projection, is placing our behaviors and who we are onto our husbands or another, but we're talking about marriage, placing our behaviors and who we are on our husbands and seeing them through that lens of our projection, so we don't have to look at ourselves. And the reason we don't want to look at ourselves is then we would feel exposed. As women, we don't want to feel wrong, and having to look at narcissistic behaviors in us makes us feel very wrong and bad, and we don't want to face that. So we have to create our husbands to be that, so we can point the finger out and then everyone believes us. So that's why we think our husbands are a narcissist, and project onto them, and how we create them to be that by eliciting those behaviors. So if you're a good man listening and you're still not sure, we're going to go into, do you have a narcissistic wife? 10 ways to know for sure. And it's also for the women who listen and join these Saturday lives. Thank you for being here. That are here to grow and learn. And the other part of the Happy Wife School is the red pill for women who are brave and open-minded and want to look at these behaviors in themselves and grow and learn and change. You must listen to this list of our 10 behaviors of how we show up as narcissists in our marriages. You must assume that these are true. If you listen through ears of this isn't me, and you're not open to seeing these things in yourself, it will go right over your head. You won't see these things in yourself. You'll make excuses or come up with all the reasons you are not this and stay stuck. So you have to assume this is me. And that's why you talk about, as women, we all have these behaviors on a spectrum. And so even if it's just a little bit, you have to be willing to see it as who you are so you can change it. Because if we don't shine the flashlight on these parts of who we are, we can't change. You cannot change that which you deny. I can only heal that which I'm willing to see about myself and be vulnerable and see hard truths. These are hard truths to see about ourselves. But they're the paths to freedom and to healing. That's the only way that we can heal. And it's the same for good men, that you can only heal from what's happening in your marriage by seeing the truth and the reality. Not to be a victim, not to be poor me, but to see the reality so you get out of the trap you're in, thinking that you're the problem, and can see what's really happening and navigate the reality, not the crazy making that's happening in your wife's narcissistic behaviors. And these 10 ways it's difficult to see. I will share from my own experience. The first time, I'd say it was probably about 8 or 9 years ago, that I started looking at my narcissistic behaviors. Was very confronting, had some resistance. There's a book I read that was really helpful, called The Wizard of Oz and Other Narcissists. and reading it not from a place of diagnosing myself with narcissistic personality disorder, but seeing my narcissistic behaviors so I could change them in my marriage and other relationships. And I think that book sat on like the edge of my desk for a week before I cracked it open, because I was so scared to go into it, because narcissist or narcissistic behaviors has such a negative connotation. It can be such a pejorative term. So it's like, I don't want to see that about myself. It's the same as when I learned about victim. Like, I'm not a victim. I don't like victims. That's why I don't hang around victims. They're negative and they blame everybody. That's not me. And then that's when my mentor told me, yeah, that's why you don't want to be around them and you hate victims, because that's how much of one you are. And it was like, oh. And then I'm open-minded. I want to see these things. So I went there. So if you are a woman, you have to normalize your narcissistic behaviors as just everyday human behaviors as a woman. And there are men that have narcissism and narcissistic behaviors too. They're not good men. Good men don't have this. It's really important to understand. And it doesn't mean men that have these tendencies are bad men. The opposite of a good man isn't a bad man. It's just a good man is a unique set of characteristics and traits that these problematic behaviors we have as women just destroy a good man in a relationship. So for women listening, you have to normalize this so that you look at it and don't make it a big deal, which is what I had to do for myself as well. And you want to know, if you are a woman that's willing to see your narcissistic tendencies and behaviors, you are extraordinary. You are incredibly brave and courageous. And it means you are on the low end spectrum of woman ways and what I talk about and the problems we have as women in relationships with good men. It means you're on the low end, because a woman on the high end spectrum of woman ways will not be willing to look at herself as a narcissist and look at narcissistic tendencies. She will put it on everyone else, and absolutely not. And how dare you have the audacity to even suggest that would be me? And will get very angry. So you can know, if you're a woman, you're willing to look at this and work on this in yourself, you're on the low end spectrum. And if you're a man whose wife is willing to look at these things in herself, you want to know she's on the low end spectrum, and you hit the absolute jackpot of a wife. No matter how long it might take her to change or come around, you can know you hit the jackpot. And if you were to share this video with your wife and she gets angry and accuses you of all kinds of terrible things that you would even suggest that this is who she is, that's another way a good man can know 100% for sure that his wife is a narcissist, not him. So, 10 ways to know for sure if you have a narcissistic wife. Number 1, you have to walk on eggshells, and you never know what mood she is going to be in. So you live in a fear and intimidation and being scared of your wife and where she's at emotionally, and that you have to tiptoe around her. That's one way you can know you have a narcissistic wife. Number 2, she blames you for all the problems in the marriage and is unwilling to look at her role. It's a clear sign of having a narcissistic wife that she's not willing to look at herself. Say you bring up an issue or a problem in the marriage, or there just are problems and issues in the marriage, and you are carrying the burden of the blame. That is a narcissist trait of her unwillingness to look at herself, and is an example of how she's projecting her own inner experience onto you and making you the problem as a self-protection to not have to look at herself. Number 3 of how you can know you have a narcissistic wife, she is the ice queen. She's cold, detached, and disconnected. That's a tactic, a narcissistic tactic, to push you away and silently make you feel that you are the problem and the cause of us being so distant and cold and detached and disconnected. Number 4, she easily feels hurt by you and keeps a Rolodex of hurts to use against you. She never forgives. In our narcissistic tendencies and behaviors, we are always looking and searching for the ammo we have that we can use against you to continue to deflect from ourselves and not have to look at ourselves and to make you the problem. Number 5, she always makes you wrong for the things you do and never compliments you or appreciates you for your contribution to the family. So she will destroy your sense of self and make you feel bad and wrong for who you are, for constantly making you wrong in who you are and what you enjoy or what you like to do, as a way to weaken you in your own sense of self. Number 6, she gaslights you and denies your feelings or reality or perception of reality, which causes you to be confused and live in self-doubt. So as a good man, when your wife is constantly gaslighting you to make you the problem and telling you that your perception of reality and your perception of the problems in the marriage is wrong, and then you begin to believe that and you live in a confusion, well, maybe I am the problem, and maybe I am doing, well, I did just say that, or I did just react this way. Gosh, maybe I'm not seeing things clearly at all. That's a tactic of a narcissist to get you confused and to weaken you so that she's the one in control. Number 7 of how you can know you have a narcissistic wife. You have forgotten that you are a good man. And she's beaten it out of you. Say this is one of the most difficult or saddest parts of speaking with so many good men or having good men reach out. And it's so clear to me that they are just in their just kind of nature and how they show up and present themselves, and just sensitiveness, and it's just so clear. But a good man not being clear in that in himself is very sad to see, and one of the biggest indicators that a good man is with a narcissistic woman is he's forgotten. And that's one of the questions on my application for my men's course. How do you know you're a good man? And it's not uncommon that a good man will say, I don't really know if I am or not. I'd like to think I am, but I'm not really sure. And I'm scared I'm not. I'm scared I'm going to find out I'm really flawed and I'm not a good man. And that's the symptom and the result of a good man being emasculated and gaslit and manipulated by his wife. And the very essence of why we do that is to get a good man confused about who he is. And he really believes he's the problem and then thinks he's not a good man. That's really common, and it's very sad. Number 8 of how you can know you have a narcissistic wife. She lacks empathy and concern for the challenges and issues that you are having to face. So when your wife dismisses challenges you might have with work or with family or as a dad with your kids or just in life, she doesn't acknowledge it at all. She makes it about herself and how it's an inconvenience to her, and lacks empathy for what you are going through. An example I've used before on this, and I like movie examples, but there's a movie, Bruce Almighty, with Jim Carrey and Jennifer Aniston, and he's sharing about his frustrations at work and not getting role of anchor on the news team, and just said something of like, I just hate my life. And she turned it around and made it all about her. Of, you're saying you hate our life. And that's a narcissist, a lack of empathy to understand what he's going through. And it's not a reflection. What he's saying isn't a reflection of her or their life. He's just expressing his frustrations and challenges. As a narcissist in our woman ways, we have no ability to have empathy for what you are going through. And that's what I had to work on this morning before I came live, having a lack of empathy for a challenge that my husband is facing. Sorry, I have to feel through that. Number 9 of how you know you can have a narcissistic wife. She is controlling and demeans you as a man. And number 10, you never know what behaviors will set her. Hold on. I didn't write that right. There it is. Yeah. Number 10, that you never know what behaviors of yours will set her off. And you're afraid that if you don't act correctly in how she wants you to act, that she will cut you off and distance herself and retaliate. So this is when you live in fear of, well, if I do this, she's going to retaliate in this way. So I have to measure myself and not do certain things so that she doesn't get set off, because I'm scared of what she will do and that she'll distance herself further. And so you're constantly accommodating what you believe is going to set her off and start to diminish yourself by not doing certain things or bringing up certain things because you're scared of how she will retaliate. And those are the 10 ways that you can know for sure if you have a narcissistic wife. And if even one of those is true, it means on a spectrum, your wife has narcissistic tendencies and behaviors. And for women, this list is to see how we show up in these ways. Because when you see it, you can change it. When you deny it, you can't change it. Where I'd like to go next is a solution for women. You must normalize the narcissistic behaviors you have, because if you make them extreme or non-normative, then you will beat yourself up. You won't see them. You'll make it a really big deal and really overwhelming. And from that place, you cannot change. So you have to normalize it, so that you can understand what I just shared about narcissism and our narcissistic tendencies are just our woman ways. It's the wiring we have in our women and our selfishness and the protection we have built around ourselves because we are scared of life. We are scared of getting hurt, getting our hearts broken. And in that, we have some very ugly behaviors that are a result of being so shut off and disconnected from the truth of who we are, so that we can protect ourselves from life. And when we live in that protection and live in those women ways, we are in camp victim. Blaming others, blaming our husbands, blaming life, blaming our past circumstances for our own experiences, our own unhappiness. So the key is we have to go from camp victim to camp take responsibility that my life and my marriage and how I experience myself, how I feel, is a result of my own choices and decisions in life and a result of my own internal experience. It's in camp take responsibility that we can see our behaviors, catch ourselves, and change. That's why I share about myself, share about the struggles and stumbles I have, because that's part of living in camp take responsibility. It's not about becoming perfect. It's not about not having flaws or shortcomings or limitations. Welcome to the human experience. We're always going to have shortcomings. We're always going to have limitations. It's part of the human experience. So the key is, and why I believe we're here, and why God has created our human life for us to be in, is to have a path to self-actualize, which has to happen through seeing our limitations and shortcomings and committing to do our best so that we can outgrow them and find the wonderful, lovely parts of who we are. So that's what happens in Can't Take Responsibility, because in Can't Victim, we can't see the behaviors because we are convinced that it's everyone else. And in marriage, we are convinced it's our husband. He's the narcissist. That's another way as a woman, if you're open-minded and want to look at these things and change, is to say, ooh, I've accused my husband of being a narcissist. What must that say about me? And am I looking out through a totally delusional reality and it's actually me? Let's find out. And then your lens will completely change and you'll stop poking and prodding your husband to elicit those behaviors that make you believe he's a narcissist, and you guys can have a lovely, happy relationship. And what I talk about in being the dance. The solution for men, and why I wanted to talk about this, is if you are a good man, which doesn't mean you're perfect, doesn't mean you don't have flaws too. You make mistakes. I think I talked about that last episode. Good men can make horrible mistakes. All humans can make horrible mistakes. But the foundation of who you are is a good man, that you want to learn and grow. You're committed to continuing to do your best, and you're hardworking and take responsibility and good natured, means you're a good man. You can know you are not a narcissist. Good men are not narcissists. Nothing in them that could ever be a narcissist. Ever, 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 ever. Ever. And the reason for you to know that is so that you are not gaslit and made to feel that you are the problem. Your wife is projecting her own inner world on you. And in that's why I equated narcissistic behaviors to woman ways. You did not get the wrong wife. You married a woman. And all women on a spectrum have these tendencies and behaviors. So if you are a good man who's committed to his vows and staying based on your own values, then you have to see the behaviors in your wife and the narcissistic behaviors so that you know it's not you. And then you won't fall for the gaslighting and can navigate the marriage in a constructive way. If you are a man whose values are to leave, as you see the truth and reality of your wife as a woman, she's maybe not willing to change, which is more common. And your value is, I'm not going to stay in a marriage where I'm treated this way. Good for you to know that. And then you still have to take responsibility for your choice to leave and take responsibility for your choice to have been in the marriage, so that you don't end up in Can't Victim feeling this has happened to me and become broken in yourself and jaded and bitter and angry. Can't Victim isn't healthy for women or men. It's a very unhealthy place to be. So you have to know the reality of your wife and her woman ways and where she falls on that spectrum that I talk about, so you can take responsibility for your choice to stay or your choice to leave. And in either circumstance, navigate from a reality and no longer being sucked in and impacted by these narcissistic behaviors, that's within your control. You don't have control to change your wife, but you have control to see the reality and become wise and strategic in how you navigate these behaviors, whether you are choosing to stay or not. For women listening, that's why I have my happiness program. It is a journey from Can't Victim to Can't Take Responsibility, so that you can outgrow these behaviors, and my men's course for men, so that you can see the reality of your wife, rebuild your strength and confidence, and have a constructive roadmap to navigate your marriage. And you can find the link below to learn more about those courses. Be sure to read through the page, watch the short video that describes the course. And if you are interested and want to explore either of those courses as a path for you, then you can apply and we will have a free consultation. So thank you guys so much for listening today. Thanks for your patience as I was late coming on. Consider liking the video, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and consider sharing this video with anyone you know that it may help. And thanks so much for being here today. So Phil's going to send me some questions. I'm going to answer a couple. Because I was late, I'm going to have to maybe not talk as much as I do at the end of lives and wrap up a little bit, but I'm going to head over to the chat after I take a sip of water and just look through the chat while Phil is sending me those questions. And then we'll see what comes up to answer. Phil, thank you so much for your continued generosity on the channel. Thank you for your heartfelt messages and truths. It doesn't go unnoticed and is genuine. I appreciate that recognition very much, and that comes through. I learned a while back that I had to be a true teacher, not an empty teacher or a false teacher, in that I have to see all the things I talk about within myself as a woman, so that I can come across as genuine and not judgmental or pointing the finger out, just like these are the problems we have in our human life between women and men. So let's understand them and come to a solution, so we don't live in a doom and gloom that there is no solution or path forward. So I appreciate that recognition in the contribution. And thanks, Mike 88GT. Great topic. Luke, too many fakes these days. There's a lot of fakes out there. Yeah, there are a lot of fakes out there. Phil, Karen admits she's not perfect. Certainly not. Certainly not. Thanks, Skittles. Fantastic topic today, as usual. I can't see from the picture. Looks like that could be a woman. Thank you so much for watching and being here. Yeah, Orange and Slicky, men are not looking for perfect. They're really not. That's a good comment. And I'm going to go head over. Yeah. Yeah. Do I want to tackle that? No. I'm going to go over to the questions that Phil sent me. All right. Yeah, I'm going to say this. Happiness doesn't mean a lack of problems or issues or shortcomings or limitations. Happiness is actually a willingness to run into those issues and challenges. That's actually what makes us feel good about ourselves. It's the looking at our underbelly as humans and looking at the issues facing ourselves that builds a tremendous amount of security in oneself, self-awareness, and the result of that is feeling really good about who we are, and it's the path of self-actualization. So when I use the term happy or happiness, I'm not talking about a feeling or the emotion of happy. That is a fleeting experience and not something that we want to chase, but we often chase thinking that's what it's supposed to be. That happiness really comes from a dedication to be our best in lives, which creates a confidence, a sense of self, and feeling good about who we are. And in that means we can be sad. We can go through a tough time. We can have a bad day, a bad month, a bad year, and still be happy because we know we have ourselves. And at the end of the day, we are okay and we're going to be okay. And happiness is also a experience of no lack or want in life, that we choose the experiences we have in life to grow and learn about ourselves. And in that, I only want to be me, and I only want the life I have. So it eradicates our human nature of wanting what's next and wanting more, thinking that will make me happy, knowing that nothing will make me happy except for me. And that when I cultivate that in myself, that's where I just want to be me and just want the life I have. And then I can pick the experiences that I want to have in life, not from a place of that will make me happy, but from a place of this is how I want to grow and learn and get to know myself further in life. So I wanted to share that because I saw a few comments of, because I had problems or challenges to look at today, that means that I'm not happy, but that's not the reality of what happiness is. Because I am happy, I'm willing to look at my problems and challenges and face them. It's sometimes needing a little poking and push from my support in my life, because I am a woman and I like to bury my head in the sand, and I am such a pain avoider. So sometimes I'm proactive and willing to dive in there and look and bring things up, and sometimes I need to be pushed of like, you're not dealing with this, and that's what came up today. So thank you, Franz, for your comment. Thank you for all you do for us men, because it helps us understand and be the order God intended. Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mauricio, how should men handle women who aren't narcissistic but just preoccupied? These women aren't ever present in the moment, but both men are feeling left unseen, unheard, and unloved. Good. So a woman who is preoccupied is narcissistic because it's a self-absorption into our own problems and why we are never present in the moment, because we are in that universe of one. So you want to see, no, that is what that means. And it's not bad or wrong. It's just like victim. It's a pervasive human experience. So what men need to understand is that it's when your wife is preoccupied and never present, you don't want to be sucked in that it's something you're doing wrong, that she is showing up that way. If you are a good man, you want to see this, but it feels very personal. A good man has to feel himself, to feel seen, heard, and loved within himself, so that he is no longer left feeling unseen, unheard, and unloved with a wife who is never present. It is seen, this is the reality of my wife. It is a reflection of her own internal unhappiness and her own self-absorption. And I can't change that. The foundation of whether I'm working with women or men, the only person you have any control to change is yourself. You have no control to change another. So if you are choosing to stay and be in a relationship with your wife who is a woman and on a spectrum of these woman ways, you can't be a victim, and you have to understand this is her as a woman. It's not a reflection of me. So what do I need to do if she leaves me feeling unseen, unheard, and unloved? That is a true experience you are having in the face of a woman and her woman ways or narcissistic behaviors. And recognize that, and that's her intention to make you feel that way. So you can be objective, see the reality, but not be a victim to it, and move to what do I need to be doing for myself so that I feel seen, heard, and loved by me, so that then she doesn't have that control and power over you. It doesn't mean it isn't incredibly hurtful when you feel unseen, unheard, and unloved from your wife. But if you're choosing to be there and that's how the power she has to make you feel, you must take responsibility for your choice to be there. And then look, what's the limitation in me that I feel unseen, unheard, and unloved, because that is what you have control over to change, so that you're providing that to yourself and no longer at the whim of your wife's ability to make you feel those ways. So thank you for the question. Oh, thanks, Jojo. Thank you guys. It's so nice to see all the familiar faces and how long you guys have been around, or familiar names. Thank you. So many truths shared by Karen today. It's like drinking from a fire hose. It can feel that way sometimes. So good for you. And take some time to digest that. I feel like that sometimes too. So you're not alone. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Just coming back over to the chat. Thank you, Phil, for sending those over. I appreciate that. Just making sure not anything else. Okay. All right. Oh, that's lovely. I hear this in my soul. That's such a beautiful experience. And thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Oh, good comment. Thanks, Jeremiah. Life is full of contradictions. And this conversation today helps us to understand and address them. Thank you for having these discussions. You're so welcome. It's a wonderful place to be on Saturday. Appreciate it. Karen, don't go. I love being here with you guys, and very happy to share this message with you and be a part of this with you. And I will miss you guys too next week. So reminder, I won't be here next week, but I will be here on the 21st. So I look forward to seeing you all then. I hope that you all have a nice weekend and a nice couple weeks ahead. And I look forward to our next show. So until then, bye guys.